Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 791, Richard and Gary here. We've got lots of interesting things to talk about. We've got some Windows Insider news and some first information coming out on 21H1. We've got new builds of Windows 10 to talk about as well. We've got some retro computing reminiscences again as we're looking forward to some stuff we're doing in the future. We've got some Raspberry Pi talk, smart home, Philips Hue lights, Surface Duo, and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard and Gary. Richard and Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
Just blaming Teams for audio levels, and it was just the USB wire, not Teams' fault.
If in doubt, blame Teams. That's kind of the golden rule, I think, for any kind of a video conferencing that happens these days. Oh, it's Teams.
Yeah, it's always Teams. I've had a few of those at work with Microsoft Live Chat headsets, which you think would probably work with Teams.
Yeah, I would have thought that should be fine. Surely, should all be compatible and hunky dory.
Yeah, but not necessarily. So,
no.
But anyway, we're not here to complain about Teams. We've got lots of other stuff to talk about tonight. We've got some insider news, some Surface Duo news, some flight sim update as well, and maybe a little bit of info on 21H1, which Microsoft might have accidentally posted.
And I've got another reader's question as well. So
fantastic. And actually, I've been planning some future shows as well. So we are going to be doing some retro specials. We've got a couple of different people. One guy's doing very interesting stuff with Z80 processor commands on a Raspberry Pi. So we'll see if we can do that. And we're going to be talking perhaps in a few weeks when it's the anniversary of the ZX81 to a developer who writes games for the ZX81 still.
Good.
It should be interesting to hear. Writing the games with 1K memory. I think we could probably do a lesson on how to write programs with 1K of memory.
You don't need
absolutely
1K.
Right.
You don't need 1K. That's too much.
I remember the old trick. I don't even remember this one, but variables took up more memory than text. So you did all your lets with quote as strings, and then you did the vals to turn them back to values again.
Oh, we're getting dangerously close to some learning out here. I mean, obviously, you're talking about using BASIC. There are some of us who would basically hand program opcodes to sort of fit into less than 255 bytes of CPU RAM.
Yeah,
255. That's what. These people who don't have to do paging and.
Those what were those machines we saw at Bletchley Park, Gary, that you worked on with the big spinning tape thing? That was a big disc thing that was like that. not that I'm saying that you worked on anything original stuff at Bletchley Park. Not that old.
Well done.
Well, I mean, I was going to say it's the day after ENIAC Day, isn't it, today? So it'd been the 16th of February. Yesterday, and it was 75 years of the ENIAC, and I thought, I bet Gary's going, I remember working on that.
But no, I did work on those Phoenix platters you saw. The old DEC PDP-11s. They were quite modern computers, and the Alpha Micros, which was the based on computer which sent the Apollo 11 to the moon, which was always an interesting one.
Yeah, so we are going to be talking more retro in a few weeks' time as well. And if you've got any other retro stories you think might be interesting for us, just let us know. You can email me, ian@thedigital.com. I'll tell you one thing I did. I was playing with the Spectrum emulator on the Raspberry Pi, and I found somebody had ported over BBC Basic to the Spectrum in the 80s. Yeah. So I've got some custom ROMs running on the Spectrum that emulate that run BBC Basic. Really weird mismatch of it's almost too much from a brain to cope with that.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I mean, they did port BBC Basic to a few places. I remember they're doing a big hoo-ha when it got ported to the Commodore Amiga as well, because obviously it was a good way of, because obviously it was the language that was being taught in school, so it was a good way of getting the alternative hardware into the education system.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got my my Pi 4 fired up running. Running Fuse with all these different ROMs, so yeah, it's interesting stuff. So I think I need to get an 81 ROM, but so far I've got Spectrums, and because you've got to get the ROMs because a lot of the emulators don't come with the original ROMs and things.
No,
like
I mean
that.
No, I mean there are all kinds of licensing issues even now, even like 40 years on. It's there are some questions around licensing and how that works. So yeah, I mean a good place to look for some Spectrum ROMs actually. I believe. Is it the Museum of Computer History in Cambridge, that website? I think they've got some of the prototype Spectrum ROMs, which you can actually download and look at if you want. And they've been given permission and they've been given permission to share those. I may need to check that. That's off the top of my head, but I think because they were given one of the prototype Spectrum wire apps, and from that were able to download the ROMs to see what was different in the very early ones before the devices went to production.
Oh yeah, so I'll have to have a look at that. So we'll play some more with my emulators, but yeah, in a few weeks' time we're going to talk to some ZX81 programmers, which is just the topical news that we should be driving forward with.
Exactly. Indeed. Radio gold.
I'm sure. Look, I'll tell you what, it's funny watching old stuff. Repair stuff. I was watching. It was an episode of a show on BBC. I think it's called Repair Shop or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And somebody brought in a Victorian stereograph, which it looks so much like a steampunk VR headset. So
I remember that one. Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Yeah, with the stereo. I think they're called stereoscopic photos that they took. But it just looks exactly like a VR headset. So I was thinking, I think I should get one, a VR headset that looks like that, very steampunk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are guys that do restore all kinds of old tech. I mean, actually, you mentioned the repair shop that did trigger me into all kinds of videos on YouTube of people fixing old stuff. It's always very entertaining. And there's one guy actually called. He's got a channel called Adrian's Digital Basement that I'd recommend watching, because he will basically bring machines like Commodore 64s and old Apples and things back from the dead, and just go through how you actually diagnose faulty chips and replace the chips and and put some bodge wires on to kind of handle cracked tracks in the board. It's really interesting. So yeah, I'd recommend that actually.
Yeah, because I repaired my ZX81. I put a new keyboard membrane on it, but I've got that and a few Spectrums, but I've not got anything with the TV tuner. So I think you need to get those modulators now. And I know that a lot of there's a lot of people, you can do them online. You can watch the videos on YouTube of how to take off the modulator and go directly out into something, a format that you can. I'm not sure whether the ZX81 will drive my 4K monitor very well. Yeah,
I mean, I've bitten the bullet and decided to donate my collection of Texas Instruments stuff to the user group, because I just use the emulator much more now than the old hardware. I'm getting aware of the fact that hardware is going to be so fragile that I worry each time this could be it. So I'm heading down the emulation path now. Although what I am thinking of doing, I've been inspired by the National Museum of Computing in Bletchley Park. One thing they sell old boards except mounted in picture frames.
Yeah.
And I'm tempted to get an old TI-99 board, an irreparable one, and mount that in a picture in like a picture frame on the wall, because I quite like that really.
Yeah, that's quite nice. I think that's probably my ZX81 and my Spectrum. I think I've got a broken Spectrum as well, so I think maybe I'd do something with those and put them on my shelves or something, because I've got one of the Spectrums down here, but the ZX81 and the BBC Micro in the loft, and I think for sentimental reasons I'd keep the 81, but I think the Micro maybe get better use with someone else now.
Yeah. So shall we bring ourselves bang up to date with what's happening in the Windows world?
Sure, suppose we should.
Launch the gears there.
Yes.
No, good launching.
Yeah. Actually, go ahead.
I'll say, obviously, Gary, with his electric jag, has not heard launching gearbox for a long time, I imagine.
They do have gearboxes still.
Just lovely continuous power.
Yeah, continuous power, but you don't change gears, that's for certain.
CVTs.
No, it's not CVT. Not even
CVT, the old two cones and elastic band. Is that how it works?
You don't need gears for electric cars. They've got torque throughout the range, but no, they do have they gear down, because obviously you'd actually have too much torque. You'd burn the tyres up.
Was it the Volvo that had CVT?
It was the Volvo, and I had one.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me.
It was a terrible vehicle in so many ways.
What was the other CVT one? The
there was Dutch. Was it the Dutch? Or,
yeah, the Dutch one. Oh,
I can't remember. I can't remember the manufacturer now. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
that's going to hit me.
They were definitely interesting.
Well, we're definitely we're going to need to crunch gears to get back onto Windows again.
Well, we are talking about cars with very, very iffy internals. And so, onto Windows.
Good segue.
Nice one.
So we did have new build last week, and I've got a little bit of information on 21H1, but let's talk about the new build. So we had 21313, not a huge amount in that.
Well, I don't know, there was something in it. Yet again, they appear to have broken ARM64 in some way, so it
wasn't even available for that, was it?
Exactly, they basically pulled it from ARM64s again. It's almost like they don't really seem to bother testing it much on ARM64 machines. It seems very strange. But yeah, so as you said, there wasn't much in build 21313, just yet more stuff around using interests, going to more languages, going to more languages, and the usual range of kind of fixes. I guess the most notable thing, I'd be surprised really if this really affects many Windows insiders, is going to be the replacement of Edge Legacy by the new Edge, which I think we talked about last week. So that's I guess they're kind of hiding what it would take to easily launch it from Windows, because obviously, as we know, the guts of Edge Legacy are still needed. That's not going to go away anyway. So they're just kind of making sure that if you go to Edge, you bring up the new Chromium Edge, which is fine. But yeah, aside from that, it was relatively light, I think. Really, I mean, there was also a reminder in there, that the whole news and interest things hasn't gone to all insiders either. So. That's still taking a while to move out.
A few people mentioned that to me. They said on Twitter, they said, because I've talked about it on the videos, and they said, well, I've not got it yet, but it's just one of those things. But I think most people have got it now. Yeah.
So it's on its way out. But yeah, apart from that, it was relatively quiet, really. There was, yet again, not much in there, bearing in mind, of course, they are in the process or have let slip that 21H1 is going to be a thing, which I think we all knew was going to be a thing, but it's kind of been confirmed, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So 21H1, there's been no official comment from Microsoft about it at all, but in a Microsoft post on the tech community, they mentioned 21H1.
That's right. I mean, I'd say no comment from the Windows team. Obviously, Microsoft is a colossal company, and when 21H1, or excuse me, when it comes out, I think, was this the blog post about the Windows hardware compatibility stuff? Yeah, because obviously you need companies making drivers need to be aware of stuff is changing. So it's kind of a heads up saying nothing, pretty much nothing's going to change. And let's face it, I think we're fairly sure there's going to be almost nothing in 21H1 apart from a jumped up update, much like 20H2, I believe, because we're all expecting something big to come towards the end of 2021. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's disappointing that we still have this situation where the Windows team just doesn't seem to communicate particularly well. And it's kind of fallen to, I know perhaps it's an unplanned leak or a bit of an error, but it just seems to be, it's that basic. Why couldn't they say? Why is this veil of, oh, maybe it's here, maybe it's not here? It just seems odd that it's just not mentioned at all by the Windows team, and yet here we are, guys who are doing, people doing drivers are being given the heads up that it's coming, but don't worry, there's not much in it.
Yeah. So I think I think as we pretty much said and speculated already, not through any knowledge, but just through what we worked out, the next update is not going to be pretty massive, because what's in the dev channel and in the beta and release preview is pretty minor. In fact, beta and release preview is still on the same releases at the moment. So it's looking like it's going to be another, like you said, an incremental update that will, I guess they'll take some features from the dev channel, maybe using interest or something like that, push it to the beta channel, and that will be the early release for this year, which for Windows enthusiasts and people like talking about Windows, it feels a real shame that we're not getting lots of shiny things. For people that use Windows in an enterprise or a corporate environment, is actually quite a relief, because it's just one less thing to worry about going through big image builds and everything else for rolling out updates. So it's with my two hats on. One hat, I want shiny things to test that could potentially break, but then my day job, I want things that stay as stable as possible, and I don't have to worry about it. So you can see why they've gone down that route.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I think you're right. It's just, as you say, we're not speaking from any particular inside knowledge here. It's just a case of looking what's in the Windows inside. It has been, the word that springs to mind is moribund for quite some time. There's just not much happening in it, and yet again, we find ourselves looking down the barrel of what's likely to be a relatively dull update, which of course is not the way it's been for the last few years. But as you say, I think for enterprise and corporates, the less excitement, the better, especially with all the other chaos going on in the world.
I have enough excitement to my day stuff at the moment to not worry about that. But yeah, kind of a shame from an enthusiast point of view. Although there are, like you mentioned, there are rumours that later in the year we'll see something more interesting and more consumer visual focused, which will be great if we get to test that over the summer.
Well, exactly. Yes. I mean, it's again, time is marching on, and one is starting to get a bit concerned that, okay, if we wait to build before we see something, that's going to be, that's May, and that's getting quite tight for getting things out in time. So yeah, I guess we'll see, but it's be good to see something official that's not a leaked build a Windows 10X, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't talk about leaked builds, but if I pan, can show you to see something on there. Well, that's the thing I'm working on at the moment over there. Yeah, so I've got a build video up. It surprisingly one of the highest watched build videos for a while. So I don't know how that works, and whether it's timing of posting or some people can't bother to see what's in it because the sea doesn't see much in it, so they watch the video. I don't know, but it's always interesting to see the interest of the build videos, and this one probably double the week before for some reason. So I don't know why, but yeah, people, it's the internet. I don't know.
It's the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, but I've got that video up there, so yeah, hopefully we'll get to see some new stuff soon.
I do hope so.
Yeah, and speaking of new stuff, that's not quite new stuff. Microsoft announced the availability of the Surface Duo here in the UK, so you can pick up the Surface Duo next week, or this 18th. No, this week.
I did love one of the headlines. Was it? I don't know if this is a registered one or not, but underpowered, overpriced, and over here.
That might have been one of the registers. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say that we don't write the headline anyway. But that pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seemed. I mean, I looked at it, and it is. Obviously we only have the RRPs, the recommended retail price to go for, and it was starting at £1,349, which seemed just absurd to me, really. I mean, when you consider what it costs in the US,
yeah,
and it's substantially cheaper than that in the US. Even if you were to do, I think it's down to, it's less than $1,000 now. Yeah, so it's so that does seem to be a very excessive
it's
difference
to import it and pay the import duty.
Well, exactly. I mean, companies always try to excuses like, oh, it's taxation, it's that, but it's a case of no, that's just a lot more expensive over here than it is in the US. And quite frankly, it's been priced like it's a flagship launch phone, and it's not a newly launched phone anymore. It was already a little bit elderly in terms of hardware back when it was launched in the US, and now it's even older. And it's the same hardware. I mean, had they given perhaps fixed some of the more obvious issues with it, like wireless charging, or perhaps just shoved in a better camera, then okay, perhaps. But it just seems to be a colossal amount of money for what is a very innovative device. Don't get me wrong; it's interesting that they've done this thing. I just think that price compared to what else is compared to what else is out there seems an awful lot of money in the UK, and I presume that must be for the 128 gig version. So presumably the 256 gig version must be even more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's
5. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's I know you can compare it to other dual screen phones, which are also incredibly expensive, but they aren't as they don't have the elderly hardware inside them that this phone does. You're charging a premium price for what is not, apart from the very nice surface design, premium hardware, and that I think is the issue. Is the issue here. So I wish them luck. I just wish it had come in, a bit cheaper, especially when it's so much cheaper in the US.
Yeah, I think if they launched it at $999, that would have been a good price for expensive, but still a good price, and something that people would look at. It does make it expensive, but like I said, I'm biased though because I really like mine, use it all the time. But yeah, I can see the point that it does frustrating for European buyers to pay nearly £200 more.
It does seem very unfair. I mean, I'll be very interested to see if the Duo, if there's a Duo 2 this year, because I would hope they'll launch on. If they're going to do one, I would imagine turn up at some point towards the end of this year, because that's the refresh rate for phones. You certainly couldn't keep the Surface Duo with its current specification going much more than 2021. And then I think it'll, like many things that Microsoft does, I think the second version might be the one where they correct all the things that irked me about the first one. I think really. And
the third one is the one you really want.
Yeah. Always version 3 with Microsoft.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think with it, it'll be a case of, I think I would like a better camera. I think that because I do use my camera a lot with my phone, and I know people say, "Oh, it's not that bad," but when someone says a thing isn't that bad, that means it's bad. So I use that a lot. So I'd like a better camera, and possibly also, I mean, CPU speed is less important.
Yeah, I don't notice anything.
But I would quite like to see perhaps smaller, bezels on the screens.
To be honest, I've been using it all the time. Having the better camera would be good, because if I'm going to go out, say I'm going to go out and take some pictures for the garden or whatever, I would go and get the Galaxy Note, because I know I'll get a better picture. But if I'm in, if I want to tweet a picture, then I'll use the Duo. If I'm going out and I think, it's quite a picturesque walk, I'll take the Note then to make for the photo. Only use it for the photos, but I'll still take that. The other thing is the one thing that they could do, processor and RAM and disk or storage, I don't really have a problem with that. I don't have any need for the process to be faster. Everything works fast, but the NFC payments would be for payments.
And wireless charging as well, I think it would be really handy.
Wireless charging. Yeah, I'd like so the camera. Yeah, you could do the better camera. They seem to have solved the software issues around the camera more or less. So if they could improve the sensor, they maybe not need to have dual cameras, even a single camera. But the NFC would be nice, and wireless charging. I mean, the thing with the modern phones. I mean, this is the Note. It's got whatever 4 lenses on there. Have you seen the S21? It's got more camera lenses on it than there is back of phone on it now. and for a device, I think it would look a bit wrong on the Duo with all cameras all the way down it. It wouldn't look quite so right. So I'm not sure how they incorporate that into the design. There's a few things that they could improve on it, but actually the processor is one thing that I've not ever thought, oh, this is a bit slow. I have no problems task switching, and like I've shown on video, I've had Xbox game streaming and Teams open at the same time. No problem. There's never an issue with that.
I think that kind of does give you the clue about what this phone is for. And I think if consumers go and buy it, they're going to come away quite disappointed. But if you look at the latest set of blurb that they put out for it, they make a big point of the fact it does Microsoft Teams and Skype video conferencing at up to 1080p at 30 frames a second, which I think does point that this is clearly aimed at corporates and enterprises that want to extend their Microsoft 365 environment into the pockets of their users, and that's it's great.
I mean, for Teams calls, especially when you put it that way on the desk, it just works great. Whereas you've got to come kind of some solution to have a standard phone to work on your desk. So I think I always like to think I don't criticize too much for coming up with a different form factor, but I think the pricing is a bit much. Just pushed it beyond when it was brand new. Yeah, fair enough. But I think when they've offered that discount in the US. But I guess it's anything new market, and maybe after 3 months or something like that, the price will drop to $9.99 here in the UK.
It will definitely be discounted quite quickly. Yeah, I mean, I would be amazed if it stays. It's going to either be discounted or quietly go away, because no one's going to pay that.
Yeah, we'll see. So I mean, PC World are going to sell it. I think Curry's PC World.
Yeah, Curry's PC World, and you can also get it from the Microsoft Store as well.
Yeah, and it's not tied to any. None of them are SIM tied. I think in the US the AT&T model is locked, but you can get it unlocked as well. But on the US, the AT&T model is getting the updates a month later, or 2-3 weeks later. So you get the unlocked ones are getting the device, the update in the first week or second week of January. Then the locked ones are coming sort of 3 weeks, 2 weeks after that. Yeah, so at least something new that's coming out. We're still waiting for any hardware announced from Microsoft, apart from the new headset which you mentioned.
Yes.
The £99 or so that's certainly $99 Xbox headset, which looks actually quite good. It looks a bit like a
so I guess it'll be £159 just
probably,
duo pricing. yeah, it's good. It's an Xbox branded headset. I think it was actually, didn't it turn up in one of the videos last year and no one noticed it was there?
Right.
Yeah. I think it may have turned up in just one of their little Easter eggs that they like to sneak into their videos. But yes, it's the Xbox wireless headset. So yeah, it's good. It's got spatial audio, which is nice. It's you can use it with PCs or smartphones because it's Bluetooth. So that's good. It's got a microphone. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, it's got a microphone that sticks out. So it's it may not be the sort of thing you'd want to walk around town with. Attach Bluetooth to your smartphone. That might not be so good. Exactly, why not? But yeah, it's actually a nice looking device. And I'd be very interested actually to know how well the audio quality stacks up compared to obviously Apple's new headset, because this seems to be I think it's obviously aimed at very different things. But it's a neat looking device actually. I'm quite tempted by it.
Yeah, I think that, but I've got the earbuds and the Samsung ones, and I've got my work headset, and I probably don't need any more headsets around here, so resist temptation.
Yeah, I would if I were you.
Plus, got some earphones there, and I've probably got enough for now. But you could put that to use with the new UK content for Flight Sim.
If you've managed to download it yet, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't downloaded it yet. I've got Flight Sim installed on my laptop, but I haven't installed this new UK content yet, which is good to see. Do you know what's actually included?
I don't know. I'm still waiting for it to download at the moment. Yeah. I must admit, it's they played the classic Flight Sim a trick thing where I opened up the Xbox thing. It's got 1 gig to 1 gig, fantastic. That's a very small update. Downloaded that, ran it. Oh no! Actually, now I'm running. I need to pull down another 24 gigs. So, and it's doing that right now. So if my voice goes a bit strange or robotic, it's because Flight Sim is using up all of my bandwidth.
Yeah, they're massive. I remember when I first installed it, it was like, this is installed in 20 minutes. What's all this whinging about? And then it said, right, thanks for downloading that. Now I'm going to download 50 gig of data.
Yeah, but it does look good though. I mean, you're going to have Land's End in there. You're going to have some Manchester Airport, Birmingham, Bristol, Cambridge, obviously London stuff. I mean, they've made a load of improvements to airports. So yeah, it's good. It's very irritating that it's so big, but equally it's very nice. It's free.
Yeah, it's good. I noticed because when I played it, I think London had quite a lot of landmarks in anywhere around, the central London Eye and Houses of Parliament, all that we're in. But that's where my gaming laptop struggled with all that kind of stuff, the really detailed stuff. I guess it would struggle again. But yeah, nice to have a bit of regional content in there, and because I think I did fly from Manchester Airport when I was playing around with it, but I think it's got the more detail in there now.
No, cool. Well, it looks like it's they've also done some more tweaks, I think, around VR to improve the virtual reality experience. You've got a headset plugged in, which is good because it did feel, with the last release, it felt very I wouldn't say more alpha actually than the beta, because it it was not the most reliable experience in the world. So it looks as though it's good to see they're also doing some work around there as well.
Yeah, I think.
Although, my God, it does tax like my PC when I try to use VR.
Yeah, my machine just couldn't cope with it at all. I mean, it's fine with something like Project Cars, but it just, as soon as you enabled it, it just spanned the hard drive up, sat there for a few minutes, and then crashed. So, yeah, I didn't really expect it to. So, but yeah, it's good that they do the update for that, and it's a nice platform that they can build on that. So I did manage to land. I did manage to take off from Birmingham Airport and fly over Silverstone, and then navigate around the track at Silverstone, and with just using geography and my knowledge of geography rather than anything else. But it's a fun thing. Which one of those things, real time sinking. Once you get into it.
Oh, it's horrendous. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, you can burn through so much time just thinking, oh, I might try and fly from here to there, and also, to be quite frank, I've crashed a lot of aircraft as well. So, I mean, I'm not a pilot, and yeah, it's the phrase is, if it's a landing that my avatar can walk away from, it's a good landing. Even the aircraft has actually clipped through the scenery.
Yeah, I did try and land on the Silverstone track, which I kind of did. Technically, it did land, but it's not one you'd walk away from. But yeah, it is very enjoyable. I do like that. Yeah. I think you really do need a decent machine for it, which is one of the things that was driving sort of gaming PCs, wasn't it, late last year?
Absolutely, yeah. It's gone from being can it run Crysis to can it run FS 2020? It just consumes. I mean, wow! It just chowed through GPU. My one of my relations has just built himself a new gaming rig. It's got a 3000 class graphics card in it, and even that, it's great, but it still can't turn everything right up to maximum.
Yeah, it's amazing how much power it needs. But yeah, it'd be good. It's the kind of thing, I guess, that when we eventually can get into, when we can go out again and go to places where I can imagine some places building rigs that you can go and rent or pay or whatever, and go and really enjoy it in its full sort of enclosed glory and high spec.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's actually one of the interesting things that I do wonder what's going to happen post lockdown, because my daughter used to work in a virtual reality arcade, and you do wonder if you'd ever want to go back into one of those again and sort of put on someone else's sweaty headset or something.
Yeah, not for a while.
And I mean, obviously they'll always be cleaned and sanitized between users, but yeah, I wonder if that industry is going to be able to come back as it did, because you'd be thinking twice now, wouldn't you?
Good.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things we're going to be thinking twice about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, definitely. I think. I'm still optimistic that at some point we'll get our meetup later this year.
Yeah,
we are this year. We're going to have it this year, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. I'm positive.
Yeah.
Well, no, when I say positive, I'm sure.
Of course, you can have to make sure wherever we have our meetups can have plenty of EV chargers, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I've got a wireless battery pack here that you could all.
Yeah, you probably can do that.
You can borrow this if you want.
That would give me about a mile, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure you've got those. Now, Gary, you mentioned that you had a reader's question. Actually, listener's question. Sorry.
A listener question. Well, essentially, it's a two-part. One is it's basically a follow-up. Remember the question we had a couple of weeks back about the Alexa routines and triggering the music, and it was stopping. It wasn't playing the timers until the end of the music playlist and things like that. Which come back to me and said, "Thanks, guys. That seemed to work. I've now used the virtual doorbell that you mentioned, and that seems to be triggering the music. The only problem I've got now is that if I ask for another routine to be processed, for example, turning the temperature down in my house, it stops that routine running. Is this a normal expected behavior? And it does appear to be. If you ask for a routine, if you've got one routine running, which is a voice triggered routine, and you ask for another voice triggered routine on the same Alexa device, it does seem to stop the first one running through its process.
Right.
Which is,
So yeah, once it's like you're talking to it again, you've interrupted it and it stops the other one.
Yeah, stop the other one, which is not maybe perhaps expected behaviour, especially if you're doing something with a long timeout or a timer on it. So yeah, that's something to be aware of. It doesn't seem to interrupt it if you do other voice commands. If you do things like check the temperature or anything, it's just if you run another routine. So maybe there's only room for one routine in the processor. I don't know. It seems a bit odd, because you would think those routines would be running on the cloud rather than locally, but yeah, that does seem to be the case. And then he's got another follow-up, which I actually can answer, because I've been doing something very similar myself this week. He says, I use Zigbee devices throughout my house using the Zigbee Light Link, which I don't know if people come across actually. This is really quite a nice. Zigbee used to be a standard which wasn't a standard, and it was very difficult to work with other people's Zigbee devices. You could get. We've had this conversation before, Ian, when we had the Z-Wave guys or Z-Wave guys on. The Zigbee used to be a standard. You couldn't rely on being able to have interoperability between devices. But a few years back, they came up with the Zigbee Link Light standard, or Light Link standard. I can't remember which way around that is. ZLL anyway, which basically means now that virtually every bulb or every LED strip which is controlled by a Zigbee controller can be controlled by other Zigbee controllers, like the Amazon devices, which have got the built-in Zigbee, or SmartThings. Built-in Zigbee as well. So it's quite a good idea to use this ZLL standard, because it also gives you the ability, unlike RF devices which don't feed back their state, these will feed back their state to you as well, so you can say whether the light's on and off, and actually know if it's been turned on and off by another switch, you can watch it. Anyway, his question is, I've got a light strip, an LED RGB light strip I want to put in under cabinet, and I want to be able to control that by Alexa, etc. But I also would like to be able to have a remote control for it, or some form of switch for it. Do you know of anything which exists like that? And up until recently, I didn't. I'd not been able to find a device which had both a remote. Non-infrared remote, because he just made the point he doesn't want an infrared one because it's under the cabinet, he wouldn't be able to get see it. So, but an RF type remote, and I hadn't actually found one. But because I've been working my virtual wardrobe, I'm sitting in here. I've been working on building a built-in wardrobe this week, and I've actually been doing something similar. I've been putting some accent lights in, and I wanted an RF remote control, because again the accent lights are inside the wardrobe, so RF wasn't going to work. And I was trying to use Zigbee as well, and I came across a Zigbee controller of a company called Glidopto, GLEDOPTO. DOPTO, and they have a Zigbee device which also they call Zigbee Plus. Is their own naming convention, but that's basically Zigbee Plus RF control. And they have their own RF remote, but that's been out of stock for a year now in the UK. It's virtually impossible to get hold of. But I found out it actually works with the very commonly available MyLight controllers. And you probably can't see that because it's been I'll pull it in front of my face so you can see it. So these things are really commonly available, and they're used a lot with the Wi-Fi type light switches. But obviously it doesn't want to use Wi-Fi. So you can use these MyLight light ones, and you can pair them to this Glidopto Zigbee routine, and then you can just touch buttons. And if this was a real version of my wardrobe, the wardrobe would have just turned red. so it does work really well, and it works miles. I can control it from down in the garden. It's crazy. But yeah, that works on 2.4 gigahertz wireless. So it's on the same channel as Wi-Fi effectively, but using a slightly different version of control. But the other nice thing about this, as you probably can see again if I hold it up, you've got loads of buttons down the bottom. You've actually got 8 zones on this. You can control up to 8 of these controllers, so you could have LED lights around the place and have different colors on them, and it works really well. It's very responsive. And then of course you can still control that with the Amazon devices or whatever, and they are incredibly responsive. And I've been playing around quite a bit with SmartThings the last few weeks, because someone asked me some questions on SmartThings, and using the SmartThings local control, which is only available on some of the older hubs, you get virtually instantaneous response if you trigger it to make a change. And even Amazon using the cloud it works pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm quite impressed with that. It's work, and it's not that expensive. Some of these Zigbee devices are really expensive. Like your Hue controls, which are I mean, you could. The other nice thing about this is because Opto actually works with the Hue Hub. So you can actually use this with the Hue Hub to control. So you have the ability to do something like that to actually control it and pair it across. So yeah, very nice little bit kit, and not as expensive as some of the Hue kits, although it's a bit more pricey than some of the other controllers. It's about £30 for this controller, and then probably about £12 or £15 for the remote. Although that's a lot cheaper than their own remote, which is around about £50 mark if you could get one in stock. But it works well.
So I'm looking at, I've got my garden lights that are on a smart plug that are wired up, and they've got the timings and everything else. But I was thinking of putting some more lights in there. So I was having a look around. I did see that Hue have got a whole range of outdoor lights now.
Yep.
Their power supply, I was looking at the power supply, is actually, I think the power supply is £50 because it's the low voltage ones.
Yeah.
And that's actually about the same price as they are. Anyway, if you want to get a 12-volt low voltage 100-watt power supply, which is what I've been using, they're about that price, but the lights are really expensive.
Yeah.
But you can get the color, the full color range ones, and you can get the light strips. So I'm just thinking whether do I roll my own solution like I did with my smart plug, or do I get Philips lights and stick them in the garden?
You could do something like this. I mean, you don't have to go for the plus version, which has got the IF, because there are other Zigbee controllers around the £20 mark, which would control an LED RGB CCT strip. So the modern RGB standard is the one which has basically got RGB plus warm white and cold white control. So it's a six connector rather than the old 4 connector control, and that's what these will control. So which gives you a full gamut of millions of colors to control, and a lot of brightness you control with it as well. And you can get waterproof LEDs quite cheaply as well. So you just have to make sure the connection to the controller was waterproof somehow. Some sort of box maybe for that.
Yeah, well, which is what I did. I built a box in the garden and sealed it with the transformer in the 12-volt transformer. So.
But I mean, I've done this before. I mean, I would not buy a Hue RGB strip, even if I wanted to use a Hue, because you can control a lot of these devices with the third-party controllers. And I mean, I've just had a quick glance. There's Dopso's cheapest Zigbee LED controller is £11 available on AliExpress. So, and then you've got LED strip for about seems about £5 a metre. So whatever that works out for the fully waterproof. But you can also roll your own waterproofing as well. There are containers you can use for it. So.
Yeah, I was having to think about it. I think it might look. I have to be careful I don't make it look like Manchester Airport in my back garden. But I've just got a feeling I'm spending a lot of time in the garden next year, or this year. So I've already got some lights in there, so I just want to expand it out a little bit. But looking forward to in the summer where I can sit out there in the evening with a nice colour changing light. I think that'll be good. But yeah, those Hue lights, the plus is they just work, but you do pay a lot of money for them.
Yeah, you do. But I mean, obviously there are limitations on some of these third-party ones. Don't get the full gamut of what you can do with Hue. I mean, I think the key, the one thing which is really missing is the color change you can do, which is linked to your TV, the mood, that sort of. What do they call it? I can't remember the term for it. But
they've got it's a box, isn't it? You can plug a HDMI into because they've got the full HD PC.
So it basically gives you light around the edge of the TV and matches what's on the TV to give you a fuller picture. But yeah, I mean that the third parties don't work with that, which is I guess the main limitation. Other than that, fine.
Yeah. But the rest of the family looks like it's a bit weird that I want to have all these different lights in the garden. But yeah, spend a lot of time in there. So I've got, like I said, I've got some ones which are nice now, but it's just I want more.
I always want more.
Yeah. And I think that's the nice thing with a smart home is once you start building on this, then you kind of you never stop, do you?
No.
Right, what else did we have? One other thing I did want to mention as well. I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was trying to get Miracast working on the Raspberry Pi. I kind of got there. Got there closer now. Windows can see the Raspberry Pi as a Miracast target. so I can project to it, but it doesn't actually do anything. So, so it defeats the object, I know, but it's close. So I'm getting there. So this is my idea, was to have a Raspberry Pi 4 or Raspberry Pi 3 just connected to a monitor, and then I could just cast to it like a Chromecast or a Mirrorcast, like you can with the Xbox. So mainly from Windows or Android. But not quite got it there yet. But there's some interesting projects out there for the Raspberry Pi. It just seems there's always seems to be some dependency or some compatibility issue on all the projects that I seem to pick up on. But that's the plan anyway, because I've got a spare monitor over here now. I've got my big monitor, so I'm thinking of put it to use for something. And I thought maybe just casting it. I might vertically mount it or something and cast to it and have it as a little information panel over at the side of me, because I really like using this large monitor now. I've got quite a nice setup with that now, so I'll use this other one for a bit of information. I'm not quite decided yet what, maybe Twitter streams or smart home info or something like that. But yeah, casting means that you're not really tying anything into the Pi. You can just drive it from any of the apps on there. So that's the plan. Let's see, it's not working at the moment.
That's okay, but think of how much you'll learn by the time it does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, something to tell you, we're talking about sort of smart home automation stuff. I don't know if you've tried any of the Microsoft Flow things. Not really smart home, but it's certainly automation based. I don't know if you've seen that. It's part of Office 365. Power automation.
Power automate. Yeah. Well, I actually use that to control my EV charging.
Right. Yeah.
So which works quite well. Yeah. I mean,
quite a bit this week. It's very powerful. It does a lot of things, and not it's all business kind of application workflow and that kind of things. But really, it's got RSS and OneDrive, email links, and all that kind of thing.
I'm just waiting for Gary to say the two words: citizen programmer.
Of course.
But I managed to recreate some of the workflow that I've got in the office that was through forms and things like that into Microsoft Forms, from PDF type forms into Microsoft Forms, and it saves it in Excel files and sends you a notification with extracts from the forms and saves files to OneDrive, and it all works pretty well actually. I'm quite impressed with that, how well that works. But it's a shame it didn't have any. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say, yeah. I mean, it does work extremely well. And obviously, you do have to have bought into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and large chunks of it do have dependencies on, you need to be planning to run things in the cloud as well. Because when I looked at it, I thought, this takes back to VB3 and, hooking things together with various bits of, Visual Basic or whatever. And of course, and that's how many people who weren't perhaps, professional developers were able to create Office solutions. This seems to be an evolution of that, putting the power back into the hands of perhaps not the most technical people, which is great. It's just obviously, I think, one needs to be aware that a lot of it does depend on Microsoft's cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But anything with Microsoft Forms or anything. So if you've got any need to sort of collect data, I think using Forms is good. And then you can sort of use that automate to create a bit of a workflow for approvals or email notifications. And like I said, RSS feeds in there. So I've been using a few different things to capture RSS feeds and send me emails at certain events and things like that. So I might have a go at switching those things I was using IFTTT for. So I might see if I can sort of replicate some of that. It's just there isn't the smart home integration, but some things do have RSS feeds and Twitter. You can link to Twitter accounts or a certain tweet. So you could probably recreate some smart home type things in there. But like you said, Richard, you've got to have bought into that first before any of this is sort of unlockable.
Yes, of course. I think as soon as Microsoft realizes that somebody might be trying to use it for a smart home purpose, that's consumers, Ian. Microsoft doesn't like consumers, you know that. Enterprise.
Yeah, but it certainly, if you've got Office 365 in your business and you want to just not necessarily automate things, but just to make things a bit easier, and if everybody likes email notifications, so you can really do that really without any major programming. It's almost like using Word. Remember when you used to use Word automation for your draft, for sending out multiple mail flyers and that kind of thing? It's almost as simple as that.
Hopefully not as dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I used to hate that because people used to try and use that for doing Christmas card envelopes, and then everybody only did it once a year, so everybody forgot how to do it until you had to teach everybody every year how to do it again, and then they forgot it for next year. Great. Remember when we used to sing Christmas cards? Right, was there any other topics we've got for this week's show?
I guess perhaps just a reminder, I guess it depends when this goes out, but the National Museum of Computer History at Bletchley Park, they're doing their retro game thing this week. So I think,
is it this
I
week?
think it can still be signed up for. I think today might be Revs. Obviously, if you listen to this, that's been and gone. But I think Elite is on Friday. So hopefully people are taking part. And Ian, including you. But I guess you're not. Bad, Ian.
No, I'm afraid I'm not. Did you sign up? Were you on it?
I signed up indeed. I did sign up. It's been great actually. It works really well. I think if it goes well, that they will do some more in the future because it's been quite a good engagement thing, and it's great fun playing these old games on it's very easy to make work. I just there is a certain level of honesty expected though, that you must enter in your correct scores, not what you would like to have scored, what sadly you actually scored.
Yeah. Oh well, I'll include a link for that again in the show notes, because it's always good to support those guys. In fact, that'd be another place we'd like to visit at some point, as well as our friends in Cambridge as well. So that's a great place. Definitely. That's where we saw the spinning hard drives that Gary worked on.
Dangerous things those were.
Yeah. So it'd be great when we can get to those museums and things like that can get operating again.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's always worthwhile just paying their visits to their homepages and maybe buying a thing from the shops or something, because at the moment they've got no income. So if we want them to still be there when this all comes to an end, which hopefully it will at some point soon, it's worthwhile just supporting them a bit. That's just my soapbox speech done.
Yeah, I think I bought a ZX Spectrum T-shirt from them a few years ago. I think it's a bit worn out now, so maybe I need to get another Spectrum T-shirt.
Exactly.
I need a ZX81 one
for all those social events that you can wear it out to right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Well, I think that's just about all we've got time for then this week. So, Gary, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at GaryWMA. That's Gary to last.
Excellent stuff. And Richard, where can we find you?
I am also on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. Well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. We've got a few retro features coming up and some other stuff that we're working as well. Some interesting guests that I'm working on that have been promised. So that should be good fun as well. So until next week, we'll see you then.
Take care.
Cheerio.